There are so many knowledgeable professionals and talented experts in the world in every field. I'm neither a professional nor an expert in any field, and that's exactly why this podcast has the title it does. I'm Charlene Aminoff, and this is not your typical podcast. Hi, everybody. This is Charlene Aminoff. I'm so excited to be the host of this podcast called Not Your Typical Podcast. I'm going to delve into why that is the name of this podcast in a little bit. But before we begin, just wanted to dedicate this podcast Le'ilui Nishmat Miriam Sarah bat Yaakov Moshe. And it should bring tremendous bracha to the entire family. And also to thank, a very hearty, huge thanks to Bitz of Glitz for being our advertiser for this program, for this particular episode. We're so grateful to you, Chaya. If you are watching this podcast on YouTube, how pretty are my earrings? These are Bits of Glitz. If you're listening to this as a podcast, I urge you to go check out Bits of Glitz online. She's all over Instagram, and I'm going to spell out her very, very hard to spell website. It is Bitz. Bitz is spelled without an S, it's spelled with a Z, of Glitz, Glitz, online.com. Again, www.bitsofglitzonline.com. Wonderful, gorgeous jewelry, sunglasses, lifestyle, really fabulous things. I love Chaya. I've been enjoying her products, her jewelry for a very long time now, and I'm so excited to be wearing her earrings for this episode, so check her out. So, why is this podcast called Not Your Typical Podcast? And what am I doing here? So the truth is that when Yaakov Langer from Living Lchaim reached out to me to do a podcast, this is many, many, many years ago. He actually reached out to me, how many years ago would you say this was?
4 years ago.
Maybe 4, maybe even 5 years ago.
It wasn't necessarily a podcast, it was to do
Something. Right. Yaakov Langer, who, by the way, we love the Langer brothers. Shout out to Harvesting Media, which is where we are recording this. We go way back, and I've always been a fan of the Langer brothers. They're so fascinating. I always tell Mrs. Langer, I'm like, what did you do in your pregnancies that your sons turned out so fantastic? Bli ayin hara. So when Yaakov reached out a couple of years ago, I kind of felt like, what in the world am I going to talk about? I'm not a professional. I'm not an expert. I have no master's, I have no PhD. Truth be told, I don't even have a degree. I'm a college dropout. It's a little embarrassing to say, but I never completed college. I think I'm like 12 credits shy of that, but I don't know. I kind of moved on feeling like, well, it's fine. I don't need a degree. But I didn't know what I was going to talk about. What in the world do people want to hear from me? I'm just an ordinary human being who has an obsessive love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I try to really live my life in a way to almost make Hashem proud on a daily basis that He chose me to be the recipient of this awesome miracle that you probably heard of, Gali's story. But beyond that, I think my journey is something that a lot of people know about. I was not serving Hashem on His terms for the first 10 years of my married life, and then Baruch Hashem, B'chazei Hashem, my daughter took a little dive in the pool, and the rest is really history. That is the day that I bridged the gap between the outside and the inside. And that is when I started serving Hashem more on His terms. And my promise to Hashem is that for the rest of my life, I will prove to Hashem that He chose the right recipient for His chasadim and for His miracles and for His nisim. So I'm really here just to schmooze. I'm here just to share. This is not a professional expert podcast by any stretch of the imagination, hence the name, Not Your Typical Podcast. We're just going to schmooze, and we're just going to bring Hashem into our lives, and we're just going to try to shed light on Hashem being in our lives, and also we're going to spread light in our own way. I'm not sure when you're listening to this podcast. This is probably airing closer to Chanukah 2021. You might be listening to this, Pesach 2024, but this first podcast is going to talk a little bit about darkness and light and how Chanukah is the festival of lights and how Hashem very wisely selected Chanukah to be in the month of Kislev because Kislev is the darkest month of the year. It's actually literally the darkest month of the year. And I think when I was thinking about this podcast and I was trying to, come up with something that everyone listening can take away something from this, that it'll be worth your time. It'll be worth your, 35, 45, 50 minutes. You should walk away from this excited to serve Hashem a little bit better, a little bit more connected, a little bit more inspired, a little bit more impactful, a little bit more meaningful connection to Hashem. But also, I'm sure that every single person listening to this has substantial darkness in their lives. I'm certainly the first person online for that. I always joke, if you've listened to me speak before, you've heard me say this. But I always say that if Hashem tests the ones he loves, he's obsessed with me. He's madly in love with me. But I'm totally obsessed with Hashem, so it goes both ways. But every person listening has darkness. Now you can define darkness in your own way. You can fill in darkness with whatever it is you feel, whether it's the darkness of health issues, chas v'shalom, or shidduch problems, infertility struggles, something that I know too much about with my 11 miscarriages. Whether it's shalom bayit issues, whether it's parnasa problems, every single person listening has darkness. But now, how do we dispel darkness? We have to illuminate some light. We have to ignite some light. And that light can and will completely extinguish the darkness. So there's a reason for why Chanukah is in the month of Kislev, because Kislev is a time where we have the longest nights. It's the least amount of daylight and the longest amount of night. Hashem is showing us very clearly. He says, when the darkness falls, that's when the light can be the brightest. And I really feel like that's something that every person listening can know right off the bat, that no matter how dark you feel, no matter how much choshech you're trapped in, you could see Hashem in the brightest way possible during this time of your life. And we're going to talk about how. We're going to give you guys some cool life hacks and some facts, some fun facts, and some easy breezy exercises on how we can bring more light into our sometimes seemingly dark lives. We are going to be talking about Chanukah. Chanukah is one of my favorite times of the year for many, many reasons. One is because, ladies, it is an awesome chag with very minimal prep on our part. I mean, of course, we have to set up the house with the menorah and put some decorations up and buy Chanukah gelt and buy Chanukah gifts and fry some delicious latkes and all that jazz and buy some dreidels so we can enjoy with our kids. But I think what I love most about Chanukah is that we have the most amazing excuse, which is actually more of an instruction to stop and sit and just observe the beauty of the menorah. For an entire hour after we light our menorah, I'm doing nothing. Which is so nice because it's so rare. I feel like my life is so hectic. Baruch Hashem, I know, busy beats bored. I always say busy beats bored. Hashtag, make that a hashtag and let's make it go viral. Busy beats bored. So rather be very busy than be too bored. But sometimes I just want to stop and just take in the beauty of Hashem's world and not do anything, not have meetings, not have work, not have speaking engagements, not have to drive anywhere, not have an inbox overflowing, just stop. And I think when Chanukah rolls around, that's when I realize, oh my goodness, Hashem is so smart. He's so wonderful. He's so kind. He's so wise. He gives the women an awesome excuse. We have no chores. We are not allowed to move when the candles are lit. In our home, we actually take it one step further. Mommy is off. Mommy is completely off duty when the candles are burning. I may or may not have told my kids that it's not just a half hour. It's not just an hour. It's for as long as the candles are lit. I really try to just sit by the candles and daven my kishkas out. I'm a huge Tehillim sayer. Those of you who know me know this. My tear-soaked and torn Tehillim is my most prized possession in this world. I will never upgrade it. I will never trade it in. I will never get it bound. I will never fix it. Every tear, every mascara mark, every rip, every tear, every faded word in that Tehillim has been with me through all my trials and triumphs, and very much with my trials and tribulations. So my Tehillim comes with me in front of my menorah, and I sit and I say as much Tehillim as I possibly can. During this podcast, at some point, I'm going to share with you guys something that I'm totally obsessed with. I am a segula junkie. I love segulot, and I'm constantly finding and sharing segulas for every chag, every big day in the Jewish calendar. As soon as I find segulot, I share it with my people, with my chats, with my friends. And I know Rabbanit Yemima Mizrahi always puts out the most amazing segulot. So I've actually compiled a list of segulas just in time for Chanukah that all of you can jot down. Grab a pen, grab a marker, grab a piece of paper, just so that when we get to that, you are ready and primed to record some of these segulos. But before we get into the segulas, I know that the past couple of years have been quite dark, literally and figuratively, for Klal Yisrael. I think with the onset of COVID, everyone felt darkness that we haven't felt before. And it was a very, very scary time. When the pandemic first hit, we were all stunned. It was unprecedented. Nobody knew what's going to be. I was Lysoling every single box and every single doorknob, and we were nuts in the beginning. But then, I don't know, I kind of loved what happened afterwards when we accepted the fact that this is what Hashem wants. This is going to be the foreseeable future. And then we kind of adapt. And once you adapt, in Hebrew they say, Kol hatchalot kashot, all new beginnings are hard. With COVID, it was so scary in the beginning, and so much darkness fell at such a rapid pace. But then we start to say, okay, we can bring light into the situation. We said more Tehillim, me and my daughters, Gali and Eliza, we said more Tehillim in those weeks that we were in quarantine and lockdown than we've said over the past few years. So that's taking light and infusing a dark situation with some light. And I think that with every person listening, every person, the situations in your life, the wherever you are, we have the ability to dispel, to some extent, our darkness by connecting to Hashem. Hashem is the one and main, eternal, everlasting light. And Bezrat Hashem, when Mashiach comes, the all-encompassing, infinite light of Hashem will be revealed. Can't wait for that. But until then, there's going to be times that we're stuck in darkness. So what can we do? What can we take away from today, from tonight, from this podcast? And how can we spread light? Well, for one, we can be the light in someone else's darkness. If you have a friend that's going through a messy time in her life, if you have a person in your life who perhaps they can't pray for themselves, they can't bring their own light into their life, perhaps they're really in a deep, dark pit or in a very, very long tunnel and they can't see the light, you can be the light. You can say, hey, you know what? Let's count our blessings. Let's thank Hashem for 10 things in our lives that are going really, really right, that are going well. Let's be b'simcha. Put on some music. Let's dance. Let's go out for a cup of coffee. You be that person. When you look at the menorah and you see the beautiful flames, it's a beautiful thing that when you take a flame and you light another flame with the first flame, notice how the original flame doesn't diminish, and it doesn't go out. It doesn't extinguish. And I think that's something that every single person in Klal Yisrael, we are flames. We are our own individual lights. We have the ability to give light to other people, and it will never take away from our light. If you just even do a little exercise with your kids right now, strike a match, light a candle, and take another one and ignite that second candle, the flame, whatever. You'll see how the first one stays perfect. The second one takes from the first one without diminishing it. we can be candles that can light up so many people's lives, and we don't have to worry that it's taking away from our light. I think that's something so amazing about Klal Yisrael. We sometimes find ourselves in situations where someone, lo alenu, lo al dorenu, someone gets a scary diagnosis, and the whole world comes together. Chats, WhatsApp chats are formed, and challah bakes are set, and tehillim round the clock, and money going to tzedakah for the zechut of the Refuah Shleima. And you recognize, mi ka'amcha Yisrael, we are such an amazing people. It's because we all know that our light will help dispel the darkness in other people. So right now, one thing that you could take away, if you stop listening to this podcast right now, you can walk away knowing that you can be a light to other people. If there's someone in your life that's going through a hard time, money problems, parnasa problems, shalom bayit problems, health problems, be there for them. Help. Organize a meal train for them. Organize a girls' night out to cheer them up. Grab them and go to a shir. Send them an inspiring podcast. Do something to bring a little bit of light into their lives. So that's number one. But number two, we ourselves can just bring more light into our lives. This is the time. This is the darkest time of the year, literally. Let's infuse it with light. If you've been slacking with a certain mitzvah, perhaps now is the time that you want to polish that. Perhaps now is the time that you can say, Hashem, I get it. There's a lot of darkness right now. Let me bring a little bit more light into my life. Let me connect to you. And Hashem's infinite light will light your way. It will guide you. Maybe if you aren't saying so much Tehillim, sit for these 8 nights in front of the menorah and say Tehillim. I'm going to give you the prakim that's very powerful to say during this time. But just prepare to come closer to Hashem. If you've ever heard me speak, I always touch upon this one topic that I love so much. La briut, Yaakov, la briut. We are taught by Hashem that Hashem says to his children, Pitchu li petach kechudo shel machat, ve'ani aftach lachem petach kepitcho shel ulam. Hashem says, if you open for me an opening the size of the eye of a needle, watch as I open gates that chariots can ride through. So that's a huge return on a minuscule investment. Use this time right now, this amazing holy time of Chanukah, the time of miracles, to open up a chudo shel machat for Hashem. And in the zechut of the Chanukah miracle, may you be zochet to miracles in your own life. Just by that tiny, tiny little eye of a needle. It could be whatever you want. If you're struggling with tzniut, perhaps during Chanukah you can improve. You can just take something upon yourself. If davening is really hard for you, during the time that the menorah is lit and the candles are burning, sit in front of the candles and say some tehillim. If Lashon Hara is hard for you, I got a life hack for you. In our home, we really try to be a Lashon Hara free home. The Aminoff home is, Baruch Hashem, a pretty heilige, holy home. But specifically during the time that the menorah is lit, we do not listen or speak a word of Lashon Hara. And it's such a beautiful thing to teach the children, because even when Chanukah is over, you're going to find that as soon as somebody wants to say something, like somebody comes home and says, Mommy, you don't know what happened in school today. You kind of catch yourself and you think, wait, is this Lashon Hara? Is this borderline Lashon Hara? Will this lead to Lashon Hara? And you're going to stop yourself and you're going to say, you know what? Never mind. And even after Chanukah, it's going to carry on. And it's such a nice lesson to impart on children that as long as the menorah is burning, as long as the candles are burning, no Lashon Hara. But then it's going to become awkward to say what you wanted to say before the menorah was lit. So all of a sudden, before you know it, you're not speaking Lashon Hara, and it becomes easier and easier to refrain. So that's one amazing life hack brought to you by the Aminoff kids, by the Aminoff home. But if you're struggling with anything, if you're not giving tzedakah, perhaps during the days of Chanukah, just put a tzedakah box right next to your menorah, and every night when you light, give the children a penny each, and have each child, yourself, your husband, put money in tzedakah. There's so many ways to bring light into our lives. We just have to look for them. We just have to say, Hashem, I'm ready to I'm ready to give you a chudosh al machat. It could be whatever you want. If you are not so careful with keeping kosher, if you're not so careful with saying mincha, if you don't always say asher yatzar, if you don't always say shahakol. Speaking of which, 1 minute. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nהיה bidbaro. If brachot are something you struggle with, now's the time. Now is the time in this Chodesh Kislev where it becomes dark at like 1 p.m. I'm just kidding. It gets really, really dark really soon. Oh my goodness, the cutest story. We were sending my Yosef up to sleep. He's nearly 10, Baruch Hashem. And usually my home, nobody has bedtime. Everyone's awake until 12, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. My apologies to all of my children's rebbes and teachers. I know. My kids do not get enough sleep. It's something I'm working on. Not really, but I'm going to say that so Jonathan, who's listening, is going to be proud of me. Jonathan's the first one asleep in my home. But one night, my Yosef was preparing to go up to sleep because Daddy told him it's time for bed. And it was really, really early. It was like 5 o'clock. But because it gets so dark so fast, you could kind of almost make them think it's a lot later than it really is. And he was preparing to go up to bed, and then he passed by a clock, and he's like, wait, is this clock right? And my older kids were cracking up. They're like, yup. And he's like, that's it. I'm not going to sleep, even though it looks like it's midnight. I'm going to stay awake until everyone else goes to sleep. So don't do what we do in our home. Don't not have bedtime because it's really bad for the kids. Like I said, I'm not a professional. I'm not an expert. But I do know that children need more sleep than my kids get. So bekitzer, try to have your kids go to sleep a little bit earlier. It's going to be hard when they're very smart and it's very early on. But Jonathan, I'm really working hard on trying to get the kids not to have my horrible DNA of insomnia. And I'm really working on trying to get them to sleep before midnight. So that's that, hashtag Shalom Bayit. Okay, so Chanukah is a time of miracles. I think that's something that I was really excited to talk about because those of you who know me, the whole Gali story is all about the miracle. Why do we put the menorah in the window? What's the big deal? So what? Oil burned for 8 days when it was meant to burn for 1. So I was really thinking about this, and I realized that if you think about the word miracles, every single thing that happens is a direct command of Hashem. Therefore, every single thing is a miracle. 100%. The fact that you wake up and your neshama is returned back to you, it's a miracle. The fact that you drive safely to your appointment, it's a miracle. Everything's a miracle. Hashem, Hinei lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael. The guardian of Israel never slumbers nor sleeps. Hashem is constantly awake and orchestrating every single thing in our lives. But what happens that the word miracle becomes profound? It becomes so supernatural. It's when Hashem rises above nature to show you that He's always performing miracles for us. But once in a blue moon, it's almost like Hashem lifts the veil. He lifts the curtain. And the puppeteer, the grand puppeteer, is revealed to the audience. He's revealed to the world. And that's what happened with the miracle of Chanukah. The oil was meant to last 1 day, but it lasted 8 days. That's supernatural. So we put the menorah in the window to be mefarsem our nes, to do persume nisa, to prove to the world Hashem is kol yachol. There is no situation in this world that's impossible for Hashem. And that Hashem is orchestrating every single thing in our lives. If we believe the emunah Shleima that Hashem can perform a miracle for us, He can. And He may, and He will. So for me, everything about Chanukah is just so meaningful and so beautiful because Hodu Hashem, I was zochet to a nes. I've been zochet to many nisim in my life, I should say. My children are miracles. I was not meant to have any children. You've heard my speeches. You've heard my talks on my struggles with infertility and my 11 miscarriages. This big, and I wish you could see what I'm doing. Big, in air quotes, top infertility specialist who looked me dead in the eyes and promised me that I would never have a child of my own. Well, he's laughing now because I proved to him that Hashem is the ultimate doctor. Okay, so Hashem is the ultimate doctor. If you were to stop listening to this podcast right now, you would walk away with enough juice, enough inspiration. Hashem is the ultimate doctor. Nothing's impossible for Hashem. He's kol yachol. If you have a chas v'chalila, scary blood test result, biopsy result, whatever, if you've discovered some symptoms that you're nervous about, stop right now. Hashem can do anything and everything. Miracles are very, very much part of Hashem's method of operation. So don't fret, because Hashem is the ultimate doctor. Do not listen to doctors. Listen to them. Be healthy, take your vitamins, follow protocol. But lemaisa, Hashem is the only one who can cure and who can heal. So anyone who's told you, chas v'shalom, you will not have children, this is the chas v'chalila diagnosis and it's not good, it's stage this, it's stage that. Hashem. Only Hashem can dispel that darkness. So bring Hashem into your life. Yes. We're going to pause for a moment and say thank you to Bitz of Glitz for being the most amazing advertiser for this episode. I wish you guys can see these earrings that I'm wearing. Love, 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 love. I love hoops, and I love white gold hoops, and I love white gold hoops with diamonds. And that's exactly what I'm sporting. Shout out to Chaya. We really love you. We appreciate you. Pardon? That's so nice of her. Okay, guys, this just in from the producers. Bitz of Glitz is offering 15% off to any of my listeners as long as you use podcast as your promo code. So head over to bitzofglitzonline.com. Remember, Bitz is spelled with a Z. Bitz of Glitz, both Z's at the end, online.com, or you could also check her out on Instagram. Fascinating, fabulous products, amazing pricing, great quality, and you can order from her until further notice.
Yeah.
By the way, really does make an amazing Chanukah gift. My kids, my girls are obsessed with jewelry. And because we're not so certain that they're so responsible yet with expensive jewelry, Bitz of Glitz has always been my go-to. So definitely check her out for your Chanukah gifts and birthday parties, sweet 16s, bat mitzvahs. We love you, Chaya. Thank you so much. So check her out, bitzofglitzonline.com, and use podcast as your promo code for 15% off. Okay, getting back. We're going to give you guys some amazing segulot just because I'm totally hooked on segulas, and I feel like it just gives me hadracha, it gives me like direction when I want to utilize the holy times, the chagim, the Rosh Chodeshes, and the Rosh Hashanahs, and the Yom Kippurs wisely. I turn to my segulot. So I'm going to be reading to you from my very, very beloved Rabbanit Yamima Mizrahi. She is my go-to for all these segulas. She's so wonderful. So grab a pen, grab a marker, and I'm going to read to you some cool things that we can work on during Chanukah. And Bezrat Hashem, you should all be zoche to having all of your tefillot answered latova, instantly and permanently. Always latova. Because sometimes we think that what we're davening for is right for us, but Hashem knows better. So sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes the answer to our tefillot will be not yet. And sometimes the answer to our tefillot will be no, because Hashem has something much better in store for us. So, some Chanukah segulot. I'm reading directly from Rabbanit Yamima Mizrahi's notes. One thing that is extremely, extremely powerful to say in front of the menorah while the candles are lit, you say Vehi Noam. It is the last pasuk in Perek 90, Perek Tzadi. You start with Vehi Noam, and you lead into Perek Tzadi Aleph, Perek 91. We say that 7 times out loud and 1 time silently. Okay, again, guys, I'm reading this verbatim from Rabbanit Yamima Mizrahi's notes, so jot these down. Say Perek 91 8 times total, but 7 times will be out loud, 1 time will be silent. But before you say Perek 91, you're going to say the last pasuk of Perek 90, which is Vihi Noam. Okay? Then you continue with the prakim of, hope you're writing this down, Lamed, which is 30, Lamed Gimel, which is 33, Samech Zayin, which is 67. That's the one that's in the shape of the menorah. Kuf Lamed Gimel, which is 133. Kuf, which is 100. And 19, which is Yud Tet. You don't have to say those 7 or 8 times. That's just once each. But I do this every single night. And let me tell you, it is so amazing because grab your girls, grab your sons, grab your husband, whomever, and just sit and say Tehillim. I actually have something, it's like a Tehillim Mechulak. It is a bunch of pamphlets that have taken the entire Sefer Tehillim and it's split it. So it's amazing because you could just put that in front of the menorah and have each person that passes by grab one little pamphlet and say it. And before you know it, the entire book is complete. So that is amazing. So we're going to see if Yaakov can put these prakim down in the comment section of the YouTube. Next, look at the candles and absorb the kedusha of the Or Haganuz, the hidden light of creation. You are buying emunah. Remember, I'm reading verbatim. Use this time now to beseech of Hashem. Ask Hashem to remove your fears and strengthen your emunah. According to the Chida, ask to see the good in others, to be gifted with an ayin tov, a good eye. See the good in yourself, in others, and in life's difficulties, tests, and tribulations. Ask for children who will float above in holiness. They should be blessed with wisdom and good memory. Harav, this is actually cut off. Harav M. Slanim teaches that we should ask that our children go on the path of Hashem until the coming of Mashiach and that they should not be embarrassed to be frum. That's something that I really want to talk about for a second. I'm so proud to be frum. And I want the world to know that my whole family, all of us, we're so proud to be frum. Guys, we're just buying time until Mashiach comes. So wear your frumkeit with pride. Show the world it's cool to be frum. It's very cool to be kind. That's one of my hashtags, but it's also really cool to be frum. There's nothing wrong with being tzniut. There's nothing wrong with wearing a sheitel, with keeping your collarbones and elbows and knees covered. I wear stockings, even in Miami, even in the summer. And I think it's cool. And I'm not embarrassed by it. And I just think that is something so amazing to just be able to say, hey, I'm super frum and I'm super proud and I'm super obsessed with Hashem and I love the Torah and I love the mitzvot and I love everything. Wow, I was going to get into something else, but I'm not going to get into that because we're not going to talk about anything that's airing on Netflix that's controversial, that people kept asking me, would you want to talk about this? And I said, nope. I'm living a delicious Orthodox life and Hodul Hashem, very proud, and we're not going to talk about anything else. You guys can read between the lines, but we're going to move along. Fry donuts in lots of oil as per Rabbanit. According to the father of the Rambam HaKadosh, it's a praiseworthy practice that blesses us with bountiful parnasa all year long. Let me say that again, because you just heard parnasa, and we're going to want to go back. Fry donuts in lots of oil. Okay, it's a segula according to the Rambam to bless us with tremendous parnasa. Gaze at the candles and ask that Hashem erase any bad or difficult images and memories from our minds, so-called the hard drive. Ask that we should live with inner composure, yishuv hada'at, and while you're staring at the candles, ask Hashem to be gifted with the ability to see things clearly and not to be confused by the darkness. Now, the Kedushas lady says that each night of Chanukah is mesugal for something else. This is amazing, guys. I hope you are writing this down. If you are able to jot this down and share this with your friends, you're going to be spreading light to those who need. So please share this part. The first night of Chanukah, the Kedushas Levi says it is mesugal not to be lonely or depressed. So that is something that if you know that somebody is struggling with depression or struggling with loneliness, if there's an almana who just lost her husband, who needs an invitation to come over for Shabbos, or who wants to just schmooze, this is the night to daven for them. This is the night to encourage them to daven. Just make sure that you could spread light to those people right now. That first night, not to be lonely, not to be depressed. Anyone you know who suffers from any of these, please daven for them and have them sit in front of the candles and pour out their hearts to Hashem. You will be the facilitator and the enabler of so much bracha in their lives. The second night of Chanukah, night number 2, shidduchim, shalom bayit, to find your marriage partner and have marital peace. So if you are in a shidduch crisis, I know that that's something that so many people reach out and say, what can we do? And I say, just daven. Daven, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows that the perfect person will be ready to sweep you off your feet very, very soon. Hashem's timing trumps our timing. So just have emunah that Hashem's timing will be the best for you, but daven your heart out. We have to do our hishtadlos. We can't just go through life la-di-da and leaving things up in the air and say, if Hashem wants it, it's going to happen. Well, yes, that is true, but we have to do our end. Do your hishtadlos. Sit in front of the menorah and daven. Shidduchim and shalom bayit. That's night number 2. Night number 3, good children, happy children, and healthy children. If you are like me and if you have struggled with or are struggling with infertility, tonight's the night. Third night is the night for you to really tap into the powers and to daven your kishkas out, that Hashem should bless you with healthy and beautiful children that will walk proudly in the path of Hashem. And remember, Hashem is the ultimate doctor. Don't listen to those doctors who promise you will not have children. Look at me and recognize that Hashem is Kol Yachol. The Chassam Sofer says, when you cry in front of the candles, you can be sure your tefillot are being answered. Whoa, I love that. Let's repeat that. Chatam Sofer says, okay, did you notice how the first time I said it with my Ashkenazi accent and the second time I said it with my Sephardi accent? Chatam Sofer says, when you cry in front of the candles, you can be sure your tefillot are being answered. Ladies, pour your hearts out. Tears, 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 heartfelt tears are always acknowledged and answered by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When Hashem answers that is up to Hashem, but all your tears are going to be recognized by Hashem. The fourth night, night number 4, the 4 imahot, to be a healthy and wholesome woman and mother in the 4 walls of your home of true essence. Night number 5, Chamisha Chumshei Torah, the 5 books of Torah. Daven that your husband should be a Talmid Chacham and that your children should follow in his footsteps. By the 5th night of Chanukah, more of the menorah is lit up than not. Pray that you have more light in your life than darkness. That's beautiful. I love that. The 6th night, all about simcha. You can have everything and still be sad. So pray for joy and happiness. Ezehu ashir hasameach bechalko. Who is rich, who is wealthy? He who is content with his lot. Be happy, because whatever you have in your life is what Hashem knows is right for you. Night number 7, a happy and peaceful Shabbos. Zmirot, Divrei Torah by your Seudah. Shabbat is the source of all bracha. Shabbos is the makor of all bracha. Night number 8, Labriut Yaakov Langer. Are you okay? Would you like some Dayquil? Would you like a green tea? Okay, go ahead, blow your nose. We interrupt this podcast.
Yeah, I'm like Bittul Torah over here.
Bittul Torah, don't worry. It's all good. Night number 8, guys. This is Zot Chanukah. This is the night to stop everything and pour your hearts out. If you hadn't had the chance to daven up until now by your menorah, if you haven't had the time or the ability or the patience to tap into the koach of Chanukah yet, Zot Chanukah, no excuses. Clear your schedules. Light the menorah. Sit and daven. I daven until the morning on Zot Chanukah. We fill the menorah cups, the glass cups up extra, 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 so that it's lit for as long as possible. I think it's the best feeling ever for me to wake up in the morning. I wake up very early. My alarm is set to 6:13. True fact. I like that, just when I open my eyes, I should see my clock is 6:13. Taryag mitzvot. It just brings a little bit more Hashem into my life. If I come down in the morning and I see the menorah is still lit, I'm giddy with glee and I'm singing and I'm davening and I feel so holy, extra holy, and it's the best feeling ever. So on the 8th night of Chanukah, fill it up a little bit extra. Let the wick burn longer and daven your hearts out. Daven for anything and everything in your life. And Bezrat Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should bless you to be granted all the brachot and all of the yeshuot and nisim. I got distracted because Yaakov is sending me something. 40 minutes. Okay, amazing. And Bezrat Hashem, every single person listening should be granted Yeshuot, Refuot, Nisim Niflot Bekarov. I want to close with a story that I read that was beautiful. In the Gemara, I'm not sure what, but my amazing husband, Jonathan, was telling me about this story, and forgive me for not quoting the right place, but the Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa was a renowned miracle worker. And in the Gemara, it tells a story about how one Friday night, Shabbat night, right after Shabbat starts, he sees that his daughter is sobbing. So he calls her into the room and he sees that she's so distressed. And he says, my child, what's wrong? Why are you so distressed? And she's crying and she explains that she had mistakenly lit her Shabbat candles with vinegar instead of oil. And Rabbi Hanina comforts his daughter and says, my child, don't be troubled. The one who commanded the oil to burn will command the vinegar to burn. Needless to say, the candles did not go out. Not only did they not go out, but the following night they were able to light the Havdalah candle from his daughter's Shabbat candles that were still lit. In the eyes of Rabbi Hanina, vinegar burning was no bigger a nace than oil's burning. It was no big deal. So what? The vinegar's going to burn just like the oils burn. I think we could all learn so much from this. The story is so striking and it's so unique because Rabbi Hanina didn't respond by telling her, oh, want to see something amazing? Watch this miracle. Poof. And he makes the vinegar burn. Nope. Rather, in his eyes, he was able to see that Hashem is the master puppeteer behind this curtain with everything. His eyes saw Hashem so clearly that for him it was no big deal. So what? The mirror, you want your candles to burn? All right. Hashem's going to command the vinegar to burn. May we all be zocheh to reach a level of emunah, to reach a level of being able to see so clearly through darkness, to be able to see Hashem's infinite light in our lives, to know and to recognize that nothing is impossible for Hashem. What's the big deal? The same Hashem that can create this miracle can create other miracles. The same Hashem that commands this to happen, the oil to burn for 8 days, can command vinegar to burn. We should all be lucky and we should all be zocheh to being able to live with so much clarity, with such vivid emunah vision in our lives, to be able to say, no big deal, Hashem's going to perform this miracle for us. And we should all know that when we surrender to Hashem in that way, Hashem can really perform miracles for us. Now, I want to thank you all for being here with me tonight. I thank you for watching. I thank you for listening. May we all have all of the darkness in our lives completely eradicated with the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And may we all be zocheh to seeing Mashiach come. And we should rejoice in front of the third Beit HaMikdash. B'mehira b'yameinu, amen. If you liked what you heard or what you watched tonight, we would love for you to subscribe to the Living Lchaim YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your podcast. It's free. And it's amazing. And if you would like to advertise for your company or for your brand for an upcoming episode of Living Lchaim, please reach out to them at 914-222-5513. I'm Charlene Aminoff, signing off from Not Your Typical Podcast. Lchaim.
Living Lchaim.